Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I just want to talk a little bit about um, sex and what I had learned about it when I was younger, and what I wish I knew, and what I wish was taught to me. And I remember probably being in like elementary school, maybe fourth, fifth grade. Um, very brief conversation on the teacher's part, but mostly little videos like cartoons, and they were very heteronormative, and the pictures were more like pictures of like sperm entering the egg and things like that, and trying to kind of like simplify biology. So when I was 15, that's the second question. When I was 15, what I knew about sex was very limited. I had, previous to that, like around like 14, maybe even 15, I had learned a little bit about sex and biology, but it was or in my like health classes, but the teacher was very like straight-faced. Most important was emphasizing abstinence, and then of course STDs and uh, and the negative parts about that. There was no reference to this kind of things can be manageable, or the difference between bacterial infections and viral infections and things like that. So when I was 15, I was already sexually active, but I didn't know enough. I wish I had been a lot more prepared and aware, um, because I think when I was younger, I was making less educated choices. So yeah, so what I wish I had been taught, uh, I don't know, in school was regarding a lot of things, like a lot of things about STDs, like I mentioned, the difference between viral versus bacterial STDs and the cures for bacterial infections, and then like if you have viral infections, like prevention or maintenance. I wish I was taught like about the most common STDs. Like HPV is probably the most common. Um, and how people can be just carriers of the disease. Like you might not have any symptoms, but you will be a carrier. So how important it is to get checked as often as you can and get blood work and things like that. I wish I knew how these different diseases were spread, because some of them are not just spread through intercourse. They can be like hand to genital contact or genital to genital contact or anything like that. So that would definitely be very useful to have known. I wish people would have emphasized the fact, like sex positivity, and the fact that that doesn't have to be, like that's not a negative thing. It doesn't have to, you don't have to feel shame or guilt about that. Like sex positivity is a good way to explore your body and stuff like that. But to navigate that with healthy practices. So things like that would have included, like I wish people would have, really told me to have dialogue with my partner, which I think is the most important thing. Like being really honest, making pacts with your partners about, like let's say if someone cheats, we're going to tell each other, just because of the fact that it's a risk that we could, pass on some kind of, like it's a, it could potentially it could be a life or death risk. So that's important. So even if you are shamed or embarrassed or whatever, that you cheated or did something, that you can make a pact with your partner that it's more important to talk about it than to not talk about it. Being like growing up a queer male identified guy, I was always worried about HIV, and I was just always told that I was going to die from it, and blah blah blah. And whenever I was getting tested since I was 16, but it was just a very like scary, negative, dark place. It was like the way that they would talk about it was always they would bring up examples of the people that have it, and so I really wish that people would have talked about it in a different way, in ways that I'm hearing about it now. because there's such a stigma around HIV, and that can actually lead to really negative consequences for people who have HIV. And I wish people would have talked about how HIV as a virus is actually really hard to contract, and it's not transferred in many ways, like kissing or oral sex or things like that.